thank you all for being here today on this sunny day, as we've mentioned. I hope your weekend's going well. I'm going to go ahead and start sharing this presentation. I'm really excited to talk to you all about this today, not only because we have someone joining us as a presenter, but because we have a great action item for you to take part in. My name is Erica Bolden. I'm the engagement coordinator with the Michigan Climate Action Network. Today we have with us Amanda Robert, who is our network manager, and I also have Elliot Huggins, and Elliot is from Greenlight America. And Elliot has connected us to our wonderful speaker, somebody that I'm excited to introduce because they're closely working with one of the action items we have taking place coming up soon is Brian O'Shea, who is the Public Engagement Director with Apex Clean Energy. And so today we're talking about renewable energy. We're talking about building more resilient communities. And we really believe at MyCan that that is one of our best ways to getting to taking care of our climate issue. So today we're going to go over a handful of things with you, starting with why renewable energy, understanding wind and solar. We're going to teach you about Michigan Homegrown Power, one of our partners in work with this renewable energy efforts. How to submit public comments to the Michigan Public Service Commission so that can be statewide. We'll also hear from Brian O'Shea, our solar developer, and then some of the permitting process timeline, local opportunities, and then we will let you get going to, again, this beautiful day that we're having. And if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. We'll make sure that we're taking track of them. Not sure how much time we'll have because we have lots packed in for you today, but we'll do our best to answer some of them. Otherwise, we can get to some of them later and embed them into the work that we do in the future. But the reason why renewable energy is because we do believe that these sustainable solutions will build a stronger Michigan. So as our climate is actively changing, we're seeing the impacts of those in our daily lives. From rising energy costs to air and water quality concerns, renewable energy is the most sustainable way to build resilient communities. And as Michiganders, we absolutely deserve better solutions, just solutions, and your voice does deserve to be heard. It's one of our rights. At MyCan, our mission is to amplify, connect, and support the people, organizations, and communities demanding urgent, bold, and equitable solutions for a just transition to a resilient future. And our vision is that by 2042, we have established Michigan as a leader in equitable climate solutions and achieved durable, diverse, and widespread public support for just transitions, ensuring sustainable homes for all Michiganders. That is why we believe we should be doing this. It really is a part of why we do what we do at MyCan, and it's so that we can live more sustainable lives and we can preserve the lives that we have here in this beautiful state. So when we talk about wind energy, which I'm not going to dig too deep into today, just because we're talking about some solar development happening across the state, but we really want to make sure that you have all of the facts that you can, so that you can advocate for this properly in your own communities when we're not together. But wind energy, just like solar, is a job creator. It employs more than 120,000 Americans across 50 states. And so I'll just keep going. I want to make sure that we hear some of these facts and also retain some of them. But wind turbine technician is among one of the country's fastest growing jobs, creating nearly 24,000 wind manufacturing jobs over 500 facilities. It's delivered over $135 billion of investment in the last decade in the US and mostly in rural communities. And I'm happy to be talking about rural communities today because one of the solar siting projects you're going to hear about is in one of our rural communities here in Michigan. And we know how much we need resources going there, and we know how much we need investment in those communities as well. WIN projects to deliver an estimated $1.9 billion in state and local tax payments and land lease payments across the country each year. Also, the costs have fallen by 47% over the last decade, making it one of the most affordable new electricity sources in the US. Another great reason is not only is it going to benefit our wallets, but it's going to help our economy in the near future. And then it's made in the US. Manufacturing contributes to wind's affordability. Again, as we see in the news in constant changes, it's really important for us to be manufacturing here in the US, keeping those jobs here, keeping that supply chain here to avoid a lot of those large shipping and heavy turbine components over long distances. And then finally, wind energy is holding down consumers' electric bills across the country as utilities flock to add more to their portfolio at fixed rates for prices over to 20 to 25 years and hedge against uncertain fuel costs. So it's like having a fixed rate mortgage. So it doesn't adjust over the next 20 to 25 years. It's going to stay at the rate that it's at. And that's really great, again, for our economy, making sure that we can continue to afford these solutions in the future. And then on to solar. I'm just going to give an overview of some of these again, but it essentially is going to contribute in the same way. Over 231 Americans work in the solar industry currently. Solar projects are often sited in rural areas, which have otherwise seen little economic and job growth. So these projects help infuse new revenue into the county that helps pay for critical amenities like first responders, roads, bridges, and schools. I think often in these conversations, especially when we talk about funding, rural communities feel left out of that conversation. Urban communities tend to get a lot of love because of the size population, but it doesn't mean that that population matters any more or less. And we want to make sure that rural communities have more agency over the decisions that are being made directly in their county, which again, you're going to be able to take part in, not only with the Michigan Homegrown Power initiatives, but with the project that we have coming up in a bit. So land lease payments to landowners help provide American farmers with revenue stream they can depend on during ever fluctuating commodity markets. It provides an opportunity for a new cash crop for farmers. It enables for the land to have a dual income by growing crops under solar panels or grazing livestock on the same land. Solar energy projects can help keep family farms in the families for generations to come. And many know that it's really difficult to maintain in opposite seasons or in droughts or just the land itself and farming is very, very expensive. So having another way to be able to generate more income, as we all know, is always helpful. I am never going to say no to another way to generate some income, especially if it's something that I already have access to. And then finally, one of my absolute favorites is the bees. So bees and other pollinators are an essential aspect of crop production and are disappearing from our landscape. By installing native flowers and plants beneath the ground mounted solar arrays, they become pollinator-friendly places and support critical habitats. Not only will this benefit the future crop yield, but it'll also prevent erosion and contribute to biodiversity. And it's not only for the bees, right? It's the bees, the butterflies, the squirrels, all of the little critters that live in those areas are able to thrive, making it for a more thriving economic system. Or I'm sorry, yeah, and for everybody. So moving forward to Michigan Homegrown Power, it's one of our partners. And the reason why we work closely with Michigan Homegrown Power is because it is a coalition of individuals and organizations who are ready and equipped with resources to train and empower concerned citizens to take action in support of clean energy projects, which is exactly why we have you gathered here today. They also work largely in rural communities, so they can get access to these projects, to speaking on these projects as well. Because as I mentioned, rural communities are really, really great for these projects. They often have lots more land available, and they also deserve their voice to be heard. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Elliot. So Elliot can explain a little bit more about Michigan Homegrown Power, some of our partnership that we share, and then a little bit more about what you can take part in the near future.
Yeah, thanks so much, Erica. Really appreciate the warm introduction. Great to see everybody on the call. I know it's a lot to ask to take time out to educate oneself, to get informed on these issues. They're complicated, they're not always the most fun. And so, genuinely, just thank you everyone so much for attending. This evening. My role, I work with a nonprofit called Greenlight America. And we're really humbled and privileged to be a part of My Homegrown Power, which is essentially a group of organizations within Michigan aiming to generate and mobilize local support for clean energy projects. As folks on this call might be aware, in many places and localities, there could be misinformation. There can be, fears propagated by the fossil fuel industry. And so, we're grateful to partner with MyCan and other groups throughout the state to show there is support for clean energy, show there are real benefits that communities can realize. And so, I would just encourage folks to get connected. Maybe you don't have a connection with Greenlight or myself, but chances are there's groups in your communities plugged into our homegrown power ecosystem. So, just want to encourage folks to talk to one another. And I think the more we can all collaborate, the more power and the better impact we can have. Next slide, please. Cool. So I'm going to talk a little bit about like local permitting and state permitting for solar projects in Michigan. I'm only today giving a super kind of high level general overview just because it's a topic that comes up a lot. Brian with the project and Apex can definitely go more in depth on all the nuances of this, but just thought it'd be helpful to give folks kind of an overview because in Michigan it's a bit complicated given the multiple permitting pathways. So for first, like ideally, how developers typically in Michigan want to develop a project is through the local permitting process, and this is often done by a township planning commission, a township board, or kind of a combination of both. And so, you can't have a project until you lease the land. So developers have to have the land for these projects. Really, just want to note that there's no eminent domain for solar in Michigan. These are voluntary leases, these are voluntary agreements from landowners in the community. And to me, that's just like a really big distinction from clean energy than, say, fossil energy projects. I've helped work with farmers and ranchers who are having, eminent domain seized for a pipeline project on their land. That's not the case here, which I think is super, super cool. And obviously, with that, you can't have a project site until you do a million studies, from glare studies to drainage studies to property value studies to seed studies. Apex can talk a lot more about this, but really, before even a permit's submitted, there's years and years of review and signing up the land. Kind of once you have the land, once you have the review, the township, our government needs to come up with a solar ordinance. And again, that's a process that involves working with the developer, other community stakeholders, local residents, really to put an ordinance together that can allow for clean energy development. Kind of once you have the land lease, the studies done, the ordinance, then the developer can apply for the special use permit at the local level. And again, more review, more questions, more public hearings. Really, it's kind of the transparent public part of the process. And then, once you have the public hearing, once all the applications are submitted, questions have been answered, the local municipality would, vote to approve or deny the permit. So just kind of a high level overview of how this works kind of locally. Next slide. And then, talking about the state process. So obviously in Michigan, Public Act 233, essentially if a local government, doesn't have a compatible ordinance or, has an ordinance that is kind of unworkable for development, under this law, there is a state pathway for energy to be cited at the statewide level. I think, oh, sorry. Oh, I saw my name in the chat. Yep. So this I won't try to get too in the weeds on this, but I just really want to emphasize that the state process is very robust. It's very lengthy and it's very comprehensive, and it also like 100% requires genuine engagement, genuine community feedback. So I don't necessarily think I need to read everything on the slide here, but really just to call out that the developer must hold a public meeting, public engagement meeting before they even file the formal application. For folks might be aware, I know there's a solar project in Zeeland and Jamestown townships this week that's had this process going on, and lots of public engagement, lots of public outreach. Yeah, kind of from there, submitting the actual application, working through an administrative law judge, and yeah, getting the hearing scheduled throughout the process. The PSC is much more like kind of like a court system. It's kind of a quasi judicial process. And so, yeah, really the best way to public impact is like at that beginning step, or there's ways to submit comments to the docket, which I believe Amanda is going to talk about here in a second. So I feel like I've been talking a lot, but yeah, local pathway that's much more kind of informal, and then also the state pathway. So I think with that, I will turn it over to Amanda, and happy to get more in the weeds on the regulatory process offline if folks are interested.
Yeah, thank you so much, Elliot, for going over all that, and Erica for telling us why renewable energy is such an important community to communities and what the benefits are. And so we're just going to talk through right now how anybody, anywhere you are in the state, you can support these projects with at the Michigan Public Service Commission. So if they've made it through that process that Elliot spoke of, and they're at the state level, you have the ability, we all have the ability to make public comment and let them know that we support renewable energy. And especially knowing that, there is organized pushback, a lot of it around misinformation, but there are people that don't like renewable energy. And we know that we are the majority. And so we want to make sure we're making those comments and making that clear. And so hopefully somebody can drop the link in the chat. But the first thing you're going to do is find a case. So if you went directly to the Michigan Public Service Commission website where this would take place, it's under Licensing and Regulatory Affairs, LARA. It's actually pretty user-friendly. We'll give you the link directly there, and you can link through the spreadsheet that we'll share as well. But if you wanted to go in there and if you heard of a project, but you weren't sure of the case number, you could search for it to see if it's at that level. You could even search words like solar and see what comes up. So it's actually pretty user-friendly, but we've actually made it even easier. And if you go into the spreadsheet here that we're going to link, perfect. You can find a case that you want to advocate for. And so they're linked there with their case number. And it's going to look just like this in this case tracker spreadsheet. And you're just going to click on that link right on the left-hand side. You can see where the project is, who the developer is, the type of project it is. Most of them right now are solar, of course, but not all. And you can click there and it'll link directly over to the LARA website where you can make a public comment. And I don't know if the next slide will really show it, but it's really simple. It like submit comment pops right up, and you can write your own comment. We'll have lots of guidance around this where you could just copy and paste. I think it's usually best practice to, follow some of the guidance that's given to you, but put in your personal reasons why you support renewable energy and why it's important to you, and the benefits that kind of stand out to you. And then you just send that over. You can hit submit right on the website. You can submit your comment, or you can attach it with a document. I always write stuff in a separate document because I'm always scared I'm going to somehow delete it all or my computer will die on me or something. And so I'll always be attaching documents, but you do it however it makes sense for you. And this really is a simple process. You could just use your cell phone and be able to do this. And we'll give you all the links to be able to go directly to the website to find out more about those cases that we're advocating for as a group. And then there's even a video you can watch that'll walk you right through this again. So if anybody has any questions, if you've gone to this website in the past and you found it kind of hard to understand, please share those with us. But yeah, I think if you want to go to the next slide. Oh, I see that question in the chat about if we consider large scale battery storage a renewable energy source. It's not necessarily a source. Ellie, do you want to take the question, or do we want to answer it right in the chat?
Yeah, so I think BAS is almost a completely separate conversation from today, which is
Yep.
primarily solar. But I would say that yes, like I wouldn't say call it a renewable energy resource, but I would call it essential to the energy transition and an important technology. And I think you're going to see more and more solar projects paired with BESS going forward in the future. The one we're talking about today is not, but I guess that'd be my quick 2 cents. And I don't know if Brian wants to expand on that.
Yeah, that's perfect. And I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Brian at Apex Clean Energy. And they are one of those renewable energy projects that really have, we would say, done it kind of the right way with real community engagement. And so we want to give him a chance to talk about the process they've taken and what this project's all about.
Yeah, thanks, Amanda, Erica Elliott, and hi, everybody. Brian O'Shea, Director of Public Engagement at Apex Clean Energy. And I'm gonna, hopefully, if I have permissions, I will try to take over sharing and let me know if folks are seeing my screen. These PowerPoints are always weird. I think it's showing up, right? All right. So I will jump right in and talking a little bit about a project we have going in Allegan County, just south of Grand Rapids, called Blazing Star Solar. And I'll also cover a couple high-level topics about solar too that will be relevant for folks. So who's Apex? Who are we? We're a nearly 20-year-old clean energy company. We're based in Charlottesville, Virginia, with a regional office in Minnesota. That's where I'm based, and we have folks who are remote and project-based across the country, including in Michigan. We're American-owned, veteran-led, and we develop, build, own, and operate wind and solar projects primarily. And we've got about 400 employees with experts ranging from wildlife biologists to wind and solar technicians to public engagement folks like myself, developers, construction folks, GIS analysts, et cetera. So we've got a lot of internal folks working to build these projects. Here's where we are in Michigan. We built Michigan's largest wind project up in Isabella County that's now owned and operated by DTE. And we also own and operate ourselves a solar project down south of Coldwater. And we have other projects in development from Monroe County to Sanilac to Allegan County and in other parts of the state. So again, what do we do? What's unique about us? We develop, we build, we own, and operate. So we're what's called an independent power producer. Not all developers do this. Some developers are they're a develop and flip operation. They do all the development work, they package it up so it's ready to construction, and then maybe sell it to utility, sell it to another operator. But Apex is unique in that we've been doing construction and operating projects for nearly a decade now. And we grew from a very small business in Charlottesville, Virginia that couldn't afford to own a multi-$100 million wind farm to now a larger company so we can actually own and operate these projects, which is exciting for us. And one of those projects that we're excited to develop and hopefully own and operate in the near future is called Blazing Star Solar. It's a 125 megawatt project just south of Wayland. It's in Wayland Township, which kind of surrounds the city of Wayland. Just if you kind of took Patterson Road straight south from the airport and kept going, eventually you would drive right past the project coming south out of Grand Rapids. Our plan is to build this next year, have it operating by 2028 or maybe early 2029. And it's roughly 1,000-acre project that connects directly to an existing Wolverine substation and is a good location for a solar project in the state. Here's just kind of a blown out, zoomed out level of sort of what the project looks like. A lot of those green circles are homes that have sort of buffers carved out. And so the yellow area are generally places where solar panels could go. So you can see that this is primarily farm fields that we have a couple local farmers who are looking to diversify, and someone who has a big operation and is adding solar into the mix. Then a couple folks who are kind of legacy family farmers but have gotten out of farming themselves but want to keep the land in the family. And that's how we're going about it. So, why Michigan? Why here? There's a lot of capital investment happening in solar in Michigan. There's about 440,000 homes in Michigan that could be powered by solar energy today. And the state has, robust renewable energy goals of getting to 100% clean energy, including nuclear by 2040. And you've got 3,000 plus megawatts of coal in the state that is slated to retire. That replacement generation is going to need to come from somewhere, either imports from out of state or generating it right there in Michigan. And so that's why you're seeing a lot of projects like this coming to the state. And compared to the UP, the southern part of the state has a much better solar resource. So that's why a lot of the solar you're seeing in the state is kind of south, south the interstate is seeing a lot compared to the rest of the state. So what kind of benefits does a project like this bring? It's about a $250 million investment in Allegan County. It would pay about $25 million in property taxes over its lifetime while generating hundreds of construction jobs. Wayland is actually unique in that the Carpenters Union has a big training center right in Wayland, and the Carpenters have a whole local dedicated to solar work. So that's exciting for us that we've got a local source of union skilled labor that could come to bear to support the project. But there's lots of different local businesses who work on a project like this as well, ranging from gravel suppliers to food trucks to dump trucks to fencing suppliers, tree nurseries, and the like. Where does that tax money go from a project like this? This is just a little bit of a breakdown. A lot of it goes to schools, but the county, the townships, library services, all the way down to county senior programs and medical facilities can all take advantage of the new revenue generated by a solar project like this. In a lot of places, we're the single largest taxpayer in the township. Wayland Township has a casino and some other stuff, so we probably aren't the biggest taxpayer in Wayland Township, but pretty significant new source of revenue for a township that is looking to do a lot of road improvements and some other work. And just by way of comparison, what does that compare to like what the farmland is paying in taxes? Well, this same land paid about $40,000 of taxes in 2024. First year of taxes with the solar project would be $1 million. So, about a 27-fold increase in the tax revenue generated by the project. And that's not even counting the land taxes. That's just the equipment tax itself. Other community benefits we bring, we have a project participation option for all neighboring residents. So even if we're never touching your property, but we're changing your view, you can actually sign up for the project and get some annual compensation for being a part of it. We sort of think of it like the kind of that Alaska oil dividend. You're living in Alaska, you're getting a little cut of the revenue. This is our solar dividend for the project. It also provides payments to farmers and landowners, like we mentioned. We have a major conservation grant project that funds $1,000 per megawatt towards local conservation initiatives. And we have a separate community grant program that's directly funding community priorities. So those are some of the other ancillary benefits of the project. Our community grant program has already supported, $85,000 worth of revenue. And we just this month actually launched a cool new program with Community Action Allegan County that's funding an expansion. It's actually 15,000. I added an extra zero. It's not 150,000, but it's funding a whole new expansion of their crisis utility assistance program. So families who have a job loss or they have a medical issue where something happens where they're falling behind on their utility bills and are at risk of having a shut off. This actually helps expand that program specifically for folks in Wayland Township, the city of Wayland, and that surrounding area to be able to avoid that utility shut off and get back on their feet, making that connection directly between a clean energy project and people's electric bills locally. We're not a community solar project, so people can't directly subscribe to us as a utility scale project, but this is one way that local residents can directly see that benefit and have it tied to electric bills as well. Lastly, I'm going to hit on a couple of things that are just general talking points about clean energy projects, things you might want to incorporate in a public comment or incorporate in testimony or something like that if you support any project across the state, especially solar. Number one, like Erica mentioned, solar is a nice, reliable, drought-resistant crop, in quotes for local farmers. It's a source of consistent revenue. It's not dependent on trade, tariffs, volatile weather. It's consistent money they can count on every year. And especially how they're structured in Michigan, solar farms are effectively a long-term land conservation easement. Solar isn't housing development. It doesn't permanently alter the soils or the agricultural potential of the land, so that land use can remain viable, even arrested and rejuvenated after 30 years of having a solar project on it, if that farmer wants to turn back to agriculture in the future. And in Michigan, landowners who have PA 116 land, they're subscribed for farmland preservation, can still do solar have that agreement put on pause, and we have extra requirements as a developer to have pollinators, native plantings, other conservation-oriented ground cover underneath the panels as well. A lot of times folks think solar and farming aren't compatible. You'll get a lot of comments. So where's all the farmland going? How are we going to eat? If solar's taking up all this farmland. I mean, several years ago, the National Renewable Energy Laboratory, estimated that to power essentially the entire country with solar, which we're obviously not going to do, but if you power the whole country with solar, you'd take up fewer than 1/2 of 1% of farmland acres are actually going to be taken up by solar. And residential land actually poses a far greater threat to solar or to farmland than solar. I don't know if folks saw earlier this month, there was an article that came out about how Michigan's lost 650,000 acres of farmland in the past couple decades, including 100,000 acres last year. We, of course, saw a lot of comments online. Oh, that's because of all the solar. That's where all this farmland is going. But actually, of that 670,000 acres that's been lost, only about 17,000 acres of that is land taken out of production from wind or solar. The vast majority of that farmland lost is farmland that's maybe been converted to another purpose, like timberland or something else, but generally it's been developed primarily for housing, but also some commercial development, industrial development, data centers, that kind of stuff. But the vast majority of that is residential use. So one big talking point we have with rural communities that maybe don't want to see a lot of housing development, that maybe want to generally preserve the rural character of the area, are nervous about losing farmland. For solar projects, and even more so for wind projects, it really is protecting that farmland for the future. You're not going to see housing development on the land that has a solar project. You're generally not going to see a lot of housing development within a wind farm or on a farm field that has a wind turbine. The farmer is not going to feel pressured to sell that land for development because they've got that income from the wind or solar project. So I think one important kind of counterpoint when you run into some of this stuff with meetings. And then lastly, we don't lead with the climate stuff a lot with townships. As you can imagine, a lot of rural areas, we deal with a lot of conservative voters. The climate argument is not necessarily the most salient with a lot of the folks we interact with all the time. But I thought for you all's benefit, you would be interested in sort of this comparison. Oh, how much power is this even really generating? It's solar, coal's generating so much more power, et cetera. Well, to generate a kilowatt of power, which is what we're using at our homes, or kind of kilowatt hours, if you have two 500-watt solar panels generating in full sun for an hour, that's generating a kilowatt of electricity. That's the same amount of electricity as burning about a pound of coal, or about 7 cubic feet of natural gas. So that gives us kind of a baseline comparison. Well, what does that mean for a project like Blazing Star Solar? Well, a project like ours is going to generate 250 million kilowatt hours per year, or about 686,000 kilowatt hours per day. So that means every day we're generating the equivalent of burning 782,000 pounds of coal, which is about 975 hot tubs full of coal, if you measure your coal in hot tubs like I do, or burning 5 million cubic feet of natural gas every day. So about 250 propane tanks worth of natural gas. So every day we're generating free power that is avoiding us having to burn that much coal and natural gas. You roll that up to a year, that's 285 million pounds of coal you would have to burn in 1 year to generate the electricity we're generating from the sun for free on one project. So that's about enough to fill up Wayland Union High School and like build it out of solid coal as a kind of block of a high school, or burning 1.8 billion cubic feet of natural gas, which is about filling up a standard water tower 100 times with natural gas. And that's every year. And this project's going to be going for 30 years. So you can kind of extrapolate that out into the future, that's a lot of hot tubs worth of coal we're saving by doing just one project like ours. So it is real energy, and that talking about it in these terms kind of helps people think, okay, yeah, well, why are we burning all this coal? If we need to burn it, in the winter, cloudy days, okay, maybe we do it then, but why burn it when we've got sunny summer days and can be generating this free energy instead? And there's other impacts that go along with that. So this is just for your reference, but that 1 year of not burning coal, what does that mean beyond just the actual coal, that's almost 5 billion gallons of water use avoided just from our project per year. That's 500 million fewer pounds of carbon pollution per year. Talk about land, solar takes up so much land. To burn that much coal, you would need to strip mine 22 acres of land every year to harvest that much coal. And that's also 46 million pounds of coal ash waste that will not be generated from if you were totally substituting out that those kilowatt hours with solar instead of coal. So it just goes to show that, some of these arguments on energy efficiency, on land use, there are ways to push back on them and have a conversation about those kinds of things. We don't lean into it as much because I think there's other arguments that are more effective around preserving farmland, around economic development, around property rights, around the low impact nature of solar. But I thought you all might be interested in a couple of these points too. So closing with this, and then I'm happy to take some questions. What's next for our project? We actually are not going through the state process. We've got a pretty good relationship with the township. They have a pretty reasonable ordinance. So we are going through a local permitting process. We submitted our application and have a public hearing coming up on Wednesday, April 8th. So if you happen to be in Allegan County or in the Wayland area, this would be a great way to get involved. And I put the hearing information on there. The most effective support is in-person public comments by township or like immediate area residents. So if you're living across the state, those projects that are going through the state PA 233 process are probably a better avenue for your advocacy. But if you happen to be in Allegan County, this is one local project that we'd be happy to have your support. And we feel pretty good about it, is the good thing. We're not facing a lot of opposition, have had good conversations with neighbors, but thought it'd be helpful to give you a rundown of who we are and what we do. And with that, I'm happy to take some questions. And I'll see if there's stuff in the chat too.
Yeah, thanks so much, Brian. There were a couple of questions in the chat. So the first one from Rob was how much for this specific project, how much of the total farmland would solar panels be on? I know you talked about that.
Yeah, we have about, I think, 1,000 acres under lease for the project, but there's a lot of open space around that and setbacks. So I think it's about 700 acres of farmland, give or take, is this project.
Perfect. Thanks so much. And then Susan had a great question about if you had any contracts with sheep farmers to graze the vegetation for this project.
So not yet in Michigan. We do have a Texas project where we're doing grazing. We've in Michigan, we've tended to lean more towards sort of like pollinator ground cover, which is a little bit different than what you would do if you were having a grazing plan. So we haven't sort of finalized that, but this project will probably be more of like kind of a pollinator oriented project versus a grazing project. But there are a lot more projects getting into grazing for sure.
Yeah, that's really exciting.
Some said when you refer to the 30-year operation, is that the duration of permits, the useful life of the facility? Good question. It's the kind of base lifetime of the facility. Usually solar panels are warranted for 25 to 30 years. So we to like maintain 85% plus efficiency. So we model that as a standard. Even after 30 years, with panels losing maybe 0.5% of efficiency per year, 500-watt panel should still be pumping out 85% of that energy, even after 30 years. So that's not necessarily an expiration date on the facility, but more of an evaluation point. Our lease can go up to, we have 2 extension options to go up to 40 or 50 years with the farmer if the project's going great and we haven't found the secret to fusion power, some infinite source of energy in 30 years, and the project still makes sense to continue. We could do that, or we'd have the option to decommission the project at that point if, or repower the project if we needed to replace panels or do something else. But the 30 years is sort of a baseline, like project's going to at least last 50 years, could go longer, but that's kind of how we measure it.
Thanks so much. I see in the next question here, people are really getting involved already, and I love to see that. And so Becky had looked some stuff up and is asking, and this might be Elliot, and if we don't know, we will try to get you an answer, but about the project called the 45th Parallel Solar Project near Gaylord.
Super broadly familiar with it. I know RWE is the developer on it. Happy to chat offline. but don't know anything beyond high level other than it's up there.
Okay, gotcha. And I put one link in the chat here too of interested in sort of a neat story about Michigan landowners and why they picked solar. I put a little article that has a video in it in the chat that I did a couple of years ago about some of our landowners at Coldwater and one other project.
Thank you so much. I'll give a little bit of time for a few more questions just because it does seem like there's a handful of really great questions and really great conversation going on. But thank you so much again, Brian, for giving us that presentation. I must admit, I'm going to have to tap into you a little bit for some of the facts that you have because we have a solar course coming up and I just learned so much from you in that like 15 to 20 minutes. I really did. That was fantastic. I hope you share a little bit more every chance you get about the benefits, not only to our farmland, obviously that's a huge benefit to the individuals who live here, but then again, I always have to say it, Michigan, the Great Lakes holds 20% of the world's fresh surface water. That's lakes, rivers, ponds, streams. So even though it might seem little to bring up these facts, it's huge for us because it supports everything that we care for. So it really, yeah, thank you so much. It was a fantastic presentation, and I really do appreciate that. And really the end of mine, so I'm going to go ahead and take over again.
Yeah.
Thank you again for having such a lovely presentation ready to go. And so we were talking about, let me just make sure I didn't miss anything here. Yeah, the public comments, right? So this is really going to be some of our next steps and what we want you to be able to engage in over the next few weeks. So MyCan is going to not only want you to go on to support those public comments through the MPSC, but also make sure that you stay tapped in with Michigan Homegrown Power. You'll get links to all of these things, but we get that list and a lot of the talking points that we use today from them. And so we want to make sure that we also share their content with you, that you have access to it, that you can make sure, I believe it was Becky that asked in the chat if you could get further connected to these things. That's going to be the best place for you to be able to quickly get access to something in your community, although we will be sharing anything that we can that comes through our communities as well. And then we want to make sure that you come to our public comment prep. If you are in the Allegan or Wayland County area and you want to make sure that you show up and advocate for this project, the Blazing Solar Project, then make sure you come to our comment prep where we will be gathering together to help people prepare for this. So essentially, we'll be getting together, having some pizza, getting to know each other a little bit, and making sure that you have all of the facts and things answered, the questions answered that you need, so you can write an effective comment. I do want to note that in inviting you to the Blazing Solar public comment period itself, which is happening on the 8th, that this is one of those positive support ones. Sometimes there's situations where we have to push back and we have to fight back. And we're really, really lucky to be able to take advantage of a time where, as Brian mentioned, there is not a lot of pushback to this project. Right now, there's a lot of community support around that, and it would just be nice to be able to amplify that even further with some positive comments about what it might benefit for your life and your community. So especially if you live in the Allegan and Wayland County, that's who we want to hear from and who we want to join. But there will be more opportunities in the future to get engaged, to get public comment preparation and training. This is not the only one. This is just the one that's coming up, and we want to make sure that you are prepared. And then just final, because I want to show this. I know Brian mentioned this, but on the 8th, this is really the big one. We want to make sure that you show up to that Township Hall meeting. You're going to get an email with all of this information in it, so you'll be able to reference it. You'll be able to reference everything that Elliot and Amanda went over. We'll have a link to the Blazing Star page, so you can take a look and kind of dig a little bit deeper into that. And I would suggest personally, if you do live in Allegan or Wayland County, to make sure that you start prepping those comments now. Really make it your own, and then we'll give you a little bit of practice time. We can help you edit it. And yeah, just keep a lookout for anything that's coming up in the future. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing this portion. But so in the near future, if there's anything that's in your community that you want to make sure that gets shared out, we're more than happy to be able to do that. So just keep us in the loop if there is something that's going on directly in your community that you hear about, potentially before we do. We would love to help you advocate. We would love to help you through, making sure that this is something that your community can take advantage of. So, yeah, I think that's all I've got for today. As I mentioned, I want to make sure that we can get some of the sunshine that we have. Hopefully, it's happening in your area. Oh, there we go. I will let Elliot go ahead.
Oh yeah, sorry. Just wanted to comment on the project really quick. As folks I think here can probably imagine, to Erica's point, not every project is created equally, not every developer is created equally, not every location is created equally. And what I think is just really cool about Blazing Star, and my organization doesn't take any money from Apex or the industry. But what's really cool about this project is there is community support, there is community buy-in, very proactive engagement, the good neighbor agreements, the pollinator habitat. Yeah, just to Erica's point, I think this one in particular checks a lot of those boxes of what a good project looks like and what can be. So just want to underscore that.
Yeah, Amanda, of course.
Yeah, and I'm just wondering who on this call is lucky enough to be in Wayland or Allegan County and gets to go advocate for this wonderful project. Do we have anybody on the call that's from the area tonight? You can just raise your hand or put it in the chat if you are. And if you're not, maybe you know somebody that is, that would also support renewable energy and be interested in getting involved. I know we want to take the chance so often in this work, right? It feels like we're talking about what we don't like. And so we want to make sure we take the chance to talk about what we do like and what we do want. So really appreciate all of you and taking your time to do this work with us.